And for more on this story, I'm joined by geopolitical analyst Marco Vicenzino. Thanks so much for joining us here on France 24. So if the goal of this visit was to just reestablish the lines of communication, I guess you could say it was a success.
I would be very careful and reluctant to use the word success in U.S.-Chinese relations because the difficulties and the problems will continue, will persist. It's about effective management of those problems. So if today was a stepping stone, I would say it was an important stepping stone, that you reestablish some form of civility to the rhetoric and worldwide and diplomacy in terms of the relations, but the problems do remain. They won't disappear overnight, but it's going to take a long time to reestablish some form of basic trust, to continue the communication to a level whereby they become more substantive. And the hope would be that at the end of this year, in November of 2023, to have a face-to-face meeting between Joe Biden and President Xi at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum that will be held in the U.S.
You think that meeting will happen?
They're working towards it. It's a work in progress. It's 6 months away. And if they're able to establish a meeting between both of them, that's where I can see a degree of positivity will be restored to the relationship, but it's still very early stage.
What do you make of the fact that China has refused to reestablish military-to-military communications? What does that tell you?
It tells you how bad the relations have deteriorated between both countries. The idea is that if you have that direct line of communication, the key reason is to prevent any kind of mishap or miscalculation. And in recent times, we've seen some very close calls, very close collisions between U.S. and Chinese aircraft and U.S. and Chinese vessels, both in the Taiwan Straits and the South China Sea. The slightest mishap or the slightest miscalculation can trigger a vicious downward cycle and lead to some kind of conflict. Where it goes, no one will know at that stage, but the potential for real conflict is there.
You're talking about Taiwan there. Of all the disagreements between the U.S. and China, Taiwan, human rights, technology, Russia's war in Ukraine, which is looming the largest in your view?
Immediately, I'd say it would be Taiwan, but obviously there's issues of trade. U.S. tariffs, sanctions. There's a lot to this relationship. It's security, military, political, diplomatic, economic. So we're looking at a very, very complicated, very complex relationship that needs very careful and effective management.
Let's talk about those tariffs. We all remember when Donald Trump was in office, he started this trade war with China. He imposed a number of tariffs on Chinese products. The Biden administration has left those tariffs in place. Why do you think that is?
It's a new reality in Washington, and Trump, in a certain way, began that new reality by saying that previous American presidents were giving full access to the United States of Chinese products, but it wasn't being reciprocated. It's about reciprocity in a relationship. So when you say that they imposed tariffs, yes, they did, but it was due to lack of reciprocity. And if there's only one thing, America remains a divided, very polarized country, but if there is one thing that has bipartisan support, is a tougher American stance on China to balance that relationship.
Well, having said that, what about the presidential election coming up in the U.S. next year? If a Republican takes over the White House, do you think that changes the equation at all?
No. This is, I think, as of what you said, what Trump started vis-a-vis China, Biden continued, and the next U.S. president will do the same. Like I said, this is one of the very few issues that has bipartisan support, both Republicans and Democrats on Capitol Hill, within the House and also in the Senate.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Geopolitical analyst Marco Vicenzino, thanks so much for coming in and joining us here on France 24.
Thank you.